Thank you to the museum for having me here, and thank you all of you for showing up and listening to some stories up from the road from Sweden to Palestine. And what I think is more importantly, why I chose to do this in the first place, and some stories from Palestine itself. And being in this venue, I really feel that we're already surrounded by stories from Palestine, but I'll share a few from the people that I've met. And I presume that is a quite experienced audience. Maybe, is there anyone's first Palestine event here today? Has someone not been to any? Oh, it's like half. Okay, so yeah, prejudice. It's just because I'm surrounded by all these pictures, I don't expect people to come here unless they're already familiar. But then I'm very honored to share stories from Palestine for the first time to you. And I'll get straight to it. In Lebanon, where I walked, I didn't actually go through Cyprus. I had a dilemma in Turkey where to go, I'll come to that. But I went through 10 refugee camps when I was in Lebanon. And the Palestinian story is unfortunately a story about refugees as well. They're still living in refugee camps after 70 years. Now, this is not the first technical problem. I could expect more. See, it's changed without me saying so. Maybe you're familiar with the history of Palestine, that in 1947 and 1948, the place was ethnically cleansed by the Israeli forces, close to 1 million people driven out of their homes, and still empty villages standing in Palestine with no people in them, because the people are living in camps like this and being spread out across the globe. So in all the 14 countries I walked through, I met Palestinians, every single one of them. There's a diaspora in every country, in this country as well. And they're all descendants from the people that were forced out of Palestine 7 decades ago. The Debaye camp, which is on the picture that I took, is one of the only Christian refugee camps in the world. The Palestinians are Christians, Muslims, Jews, atheists. They are people, so they are diverse, predominantly Muslim. This is the same camp seen from, there's a little hill beside it. And the camps are very small, and they're very defined in their area. There are usually about 1 square kilometer. And obviously the big swimming pool is not a part of the camp, because the camp struggles with water, and there's a clear boundary, and outside it you can see other things like swimming pools and such. This is in Beirut, where Palestinian Christians have been living since they were forced out of their homes 70 years ago. And their grandparents have kids that have kids, and now we're at this 4th generation of Palestinian children growing up in camps. And in Lebanon they have very few rights. They are forbidden from working at most jobs. So I met many people that had very impressive educations. They were doctors and lawyers and biochemists. They had masters in this and that. But since they're Palestinians and living in Lebanon, they couldn't work with that. They're very oppressed in Lebanon as well. Unfortunately, it shouldn't be like that, but that's the reality. So the works available are very labor intensive, like construction and other things. And they're not allowed to expand the camps either, which becomes a big problem after generations, because your family grows, you have children, they need somewhere to stay. I heard many stories about how they are bribing like Lebanese military to allow concrete to be smuggled in so they can add an additional floor on their house so their child has somewhere to stay. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I'm not the most creative guy, even though I am a musician. I called my project Walk to Palestine because that's what I did. I wasn't really sure how to go about all of it. So first practical question, how do you pack for almost a year? I'm not really sure. I go to Google, I Google how to pack for a year on the road. Google says don't overpack. So I overpack, of course. I take around 25 kilos in a huge backpack and I get it on my back and it's so heavy I can't almost stand up. Not really sure how I'm gonna make it. I leave from my apartment in Gothenburg. I walk for about half an hour and then I'm so tired I had to sit down, take a little rest, still in the city. And thinking to myself, like, geez, how the Palestine is far away. How am I gonna make it all of the way? And my shoulders really start hurting a lot very fast, and my back also. I thought it would be the feet, but it's really your shoulders for that backpack. But then someone smart comes and tells me on Facebook, like, you humanity created wheels for a reason. You don't have to have all your stuff on your back. You can use wheels. So I get a baby stroller. I thought that was a good idea. I was thinking first what to get, and I actually borrowed one of these shopping carts from like a supermarket. Not the brightest idea, because it was very difficult to handle that, and it's very loud, like on asphalt. I went a little bit crazy after hours of that noise. So I gave it back to another supermarket that had the same, and got one of these baby strollers. And it was a peculiar sight, I admit. It's not the most normal looking thing, seeing people push this around, like on the middle of the road in the middle of nowhere. So people didn't really know what I was up to, where I was going, what. So I got many interesting questions and the conversations due to just looking like this. And this was the route that I took from Sweden to Palestine. Apologies for the Swedish Google Maps. We renamed countries in Swedish. You do it as well. In case you weren't aware, Sweden is not called Sweden in Swedish. It's called Sverige. That's the Swedish name for my country. And nobody calls Germany Tyskland except for us. But they don't call it Germany. They call it Deutschland. It's very confusing to me. When I was in Turkey, people were talking about İsveç. I had no idea what they were talking about before I learned that that's the Turkish word for Sweden, Sverige. I didn't know they were talking about my country. So, and while I'm in Turkey, I also have a geographical dilemma, because I'm intending to walk to Palestine, but it's not so easy geographically. Where do you go once you're in Turkey? And I had the good fortune of meeting a woman from Bristol when I was there. And she had biked from here. She was also on her way to Palestine. It was quite a coincidence that we met Susanna. Maybe you know her. Yeah. So we met in Istanbul and had a good chat. And I was speaking at the university yesterday, where she is a professor. She arranged that. Like, the world works in strange ways, that we would meet here again after all these months. And she had the same dilemma, so she took a flight. I didn't want to fly. I called my Syrian friends, because you see on the map, Turkey, Palestine is down here, there's Syria and there's Iraq, there's no way to go. I called my friends in Syria that are in Sweden, people that have fled from Syria to Sweden, that I met in Sweden and became friends with. That was actually my first introduction to Palestine, meeting Palestinians that had fled the refugee camps in Syria. So their grandparents were kicked out of their homes from Haifa, from Jaffa, forced into Syria, lived in refugee camps until the Syrian war, where the Palestinian refugees had to flee the refugee camps, winding up in Sweden, and that's the first Palestinian I met in my life. So I called them, and I asked maybe a stupid question: what's the least dangerous way through Syria? Because they're laughing at me, in the phone, like, what do you think? Did you watch the news the past decade? I did, so I gave up on that idea pretty quickly. They talked me out of it. And when I was in Bulgaria, I met a soldier from Iraq that had been fighting ISIS, so he had a lot of first-hand knowledge on that. And we were looking at the map. He was pointing, there's ISIS, and there was really no way to walk through Iraq at that time either, without encountering those people, which I didn't really feel like, because I wanted to arrive at Palestine. So I Google if there's any boats. I'm thinking maybe I should go to Egypt and walk through the Sinai. That would be, and I can arrive at Gaza or go to Jordan from the south and go up. That was a plan, but then there was no boats to Egypt from Turkey. Almost all the boats in the Mediterranean, passenger boats, have stopped because of, I don't know why, maybe the volatile situation in the Middle East and passports and whatnot. There used to be a boat to Haifa, like a passenger ship to Israel now. No boat anymore, but I found one boat. I found one boat to Lebanon, and it's like a cargo ship transporting big trucks. So there was a few truck drivers on the boat, and me, and tons of trucks and other cargo. So I get on that boat and hang out with them. It takes 15 hours from Turkey to Lebanon. And then when I arrive at the harbor, I'm pretty sure I'm the only Swedish guy on board, right? And there are all these Lebanese soldiers standing at the harbor when we're arriving. And when I'm getting off, they're like looking at all the passengers, like all 10 of us, and they're screaming like, Sweden, Sweden. I don't know what's going on. I presume I'm the only Swedish guy, so I wave at them saying, I'm from Sweden. Like, thank you for the warm welcome. Like, here I am. And they say, get in the car, like a military jeep. I'm like, why? They say, we're going to take you to the immigration facilities. I said, okay, but all right. Like, there are a lot of soldiers with weapons, and they're telling me to do this. I don't feel too cocky saying, like, no, I'm not going with you. So I get in the car, and they drive me for 1 minute. Like, you could see the building from the boat. So it's a 1 minute drive, and eventually all the other passengers also come along, and we sit there together anyway. So it's a bit surrealistic. And the Lebanese intelligence starts interrogating me for a long time. Patrick mentioned the Prague and some interrogations there. There had been many interrogations throughout this journey. Actually, when I arrived in the UK, in Aberdeen, the Scottish police took me aside, saying that under the Terrorism Act of the UK, we have a right to interrogate you, so you have to answer our questions now. So that was the welcome to the UK. When I was in the US, they took my fingerprints on this little machine. They didn't say a word, they just said, come with me, led me to the interrogation room, sat me down, and started asking questions. So I feel like walking is, like, it's very intimidating to people. Like taking a flag and walking somewhere, it's really a security risk to governments. They get very scared, you know, maybe they have nightmares. So the Lebanese are interrogating me for 7 hours. It takes forever. They never stop. And it's not 7 hours straight, it's like very intense, and then they send you out. And I presume that they send all your answers to Beirut and their headquarters, and they cross-check and everything. And you wait for like an hour or 1.5 hours, and then they call you in again, and questioning, and then they send you out, back and forth, until they finally say, welcome to Lebanon. I say, thank you. What a wonderful welcome. And I hadn't had food for almost 24 hours at that point. The boat was 15 hours and then 7 hours interrogation. I was very tired. It was an amazing falafel experience, entering Tarablas in Lebanon. And then I'm walking to the south. But as you might be aware, there is no border crossing between Lebanon and historic Palestine/Israel. There is just a lot of people with guns. There is Hezbollah in the southern Lebanon. There is the UNIFIL people, that's the UN peacekeeping forces. There's the Lebanese forces, which is sort of the Lebanese army. And then on the other side of the little fence, because there's just a little fence demarcating the border, that you see Israeli soldiers patrolling. So it's not the most welcoming of areas, and you need permission. You can't just go there. You need permission from the Lebanese government to be in southern Lebanon, and if Hezbollah doesn't like you, you can't be there either. You sort of need their permission as well. So when I was walking there, I was unsure how to come close to the border. I just wanted to, walk up to the border, so I could have walked up to the border, and then I was going to take a car back to the airport, go to Jordan, to walk to the actual border where you can cross. That was the plan. So I'm in the Rashidiyeh refugee camp close to the border, and my friends there, they tell me that we can get the permission for you, but it takes like 2 weeks. And I don't have 2 weeks because it's just 1 day's walking from there. So we come up with a plan, actually they come up with a plan, saying that we're gonna walk to the border, and we're about 2 hours from the checkpoint. We're gonna pick you up with a car, and some Palestinians, and by the way, Palestinians are not allowed in southern Lebanon at all. They can't get permission, like they're not allowed to go close to the border. So they were gonna pick me up because they were working for the UN, the UNRWA, so they had these big ID badges saying UN on them. So we're gonna put these ID badges like very visible on the rear mirror and all over the car, so it looked like a UN car. So maybe we can get through the checkpoint, these 4 Palestinians that aren't allowed and me that's not allowed. So that was the master plan. We drive up. There's the checkpoint, we stop, we roll down the window, there's the Lebanese soldier, he's asking for IDs, and we're just pointing, to the UN badges. Don't say so much, like we're UN. He says, okay, but we still have to give individually. They all have UN badges, except for me. So he looks through like UN, Sweden, like, who's that guy? They say, he's our friend, he's with us. They're like, okay, but he needs a permission, this. And the driver is very smart. He says, we have permission. He says, okay, where is it? We don't have it here. So where is it? We have it in the computer system, but the printer was broken, so we couldn't get it out. He says, but you need a permission here. He says, you can check the computer system, no worries, there was no permission. You can check the system. And he said, well, you need it here. He says, yes, but the printer was broken, what can we do? We're just gonna check the border and then we're gonna go back. Don't make this a big deal. So the soldier says, okay, fine, this one time, but next time make sure to get it like in physical form. They say, yes, thank you. And we just drive by. We cannot believe that it actually worked. It was really, like we were screaming in the car, like, how did that work? But then when we arrive at the border, it's kind of an emotional moment because you can see across the fence a Palestinian village. And one of the guys in the car, that's his grandfather's village. So that's where he is from. And when they were kicked out of there in '48, they just walked for a couple of hours across the border, which wasn't really a border back then, and wound up in a refugee camp. And that was that. Just a few hours, and still so close. It's a few hours to go back home, but politically it's like going to Mars. Like it's not gonna happen. So we're standing there looking at the village, feeling very sentimental. But I want to tell you a little bit about Hebron and when I was in Palestine before I get into all the reasons why I started doing this walk, because this is a big part of the reason, being there, seeing everything. I don't know, have any of you been in Hebron before, Al-Khalil? So you know how difficult it is what I'm attempting to do now, trying to explain what's going on over there. Like it's very difficult to understand. You've all heard about the illegal settlements in Palestine, I'm sure. And Hebron has a settlement in the middle of the city, so downtown is occupied. Where all the stores are, the main market street is surrounded by fences and gates like this, and soldiers. And there are a couple of hundred settlers living there, very violent extremist people. And of course Palestinians are living there as well. This is a Palestinian city in the West Bank in Palestine, roughly 200,000 people. And about 20% of it downtown is occupied, like a settlement in the heart of the city. And the logic is difficult, so try to follow. So because I'm not Palestinian in this Palestinian city, I can go inside the occupied area of the Palestinian city. My Palestinian friends, because they are Palestinians, they cannot go inside the occupied area of the Palestinian city because they are Palestinians. Me being a non-Palestinian have an easier time to travel inside of Palestine because I'm not Palestinian. It's difficult to grab the logic, but I could go through these gates because I'm Swedish and my little passport just grants me access in this very unjust world. So I passed through the gates. The occupied area is the craziest place I've been in my life still. Probably I won't go to crazier places. Fight Ghost Town, it's like a ghost town now. It used to be the busiest place in this town, now it's a ghost town. This is the main market street, the Shahada Street. Not many people, as you can see. There was a few people walking around, not a lot. You see all the doors, they used to be shops until the Israeli army came and occupied this area and welded the doors shut. They literally welded the doors shut, so you cannot open them anymore. On the second floor here, there still lives people. You see the balconies and the windows, and you see the fences that they have set up outside the windows. It's to protect themselves from the settlers that have moved in there, that throw stones and other things, smashing the windows and whatnot, trying to, so for their protection, because the Israeli army isn't there to protect the Palestinians, of course, they're there to protect the settlers. And then they have Israeli police there to police the settlers because they live under a different legal system. So Israeli settlers in Palestine live under Israeli civil law, like any normal Israeli citizen, whereas Palestinians live under Israeli martial law, the military law. They're being sent to different courts, military courts, which has a conviction rate of, I'm not exaggerating, over 99%, 99.74%, last time I checked. So two different people on the same street, living under different laws and regulations, with an army there to protect one. And the city is very segregated. So you see this street, there's a fence cutting in the middle of it, segregating the settlers that are allowed to drive cars inside the occupied city center, which the Palestinians are not, and the small side for the Palestinians. There are many roads in Palestine where Palestinians can't drive. And the way they differentiate, for those of you that don't know, they have two different colors on the license plates. I forget the colors. Is it white for Israel and green for Palestine? Or yellow? Two different colors, that's the point. So that the soldiers will know, right, at the checkpoints, that if you're an Israeli, you're free to go, but if you're Palestinian, you have to stop and maybe be searched and stripped down. This house had just been, like, I'm just walking here for a day. I'm taking a guided tour by Youth Against Settlements, and they're telling me all these stories. It's really overwhelming. It doesn't stop. It never stops, you know. Next street, there's this thing, and you meet some person, and they just tell you the most incredible, horrible story, and then they walk away, and you know what's going on. This house had been invaded by the settlers when the Palestinian family was out. They had come and taken all the furniture, put it in the parking lot, poured gasoline over everything they had in the house, and just torched it all. So now the Palestinian family, they're not there anymore. They moved because they don't want to live in such extreme violence with such neighbors. And you see houses in Hebron that have huge Israeli flags on them, which usually means that they have just been taken over by settlers, literally taking the Palestinian family, kicking them out, going in with settlers, putting the flag saying, "This is my house now." Like, this is happening in the 21st century. And the Palestinians are hanging on. It's not easy, like, but life goes on somehow. It's really difficult to understand. But I guess they have no choice. My friend took a picture of this sign that I thought I might show you, the Israeli explanation to why they closed down the shops. I will read it to you. So they put up these signs everywhere, trying to explain it all. And it reads that these stores were closed by the IDF, that's the Israeli army, for security reasons, after Arabs, that's the Palestinians, began the Oslo War, aka Second Intifada. And that's sort of the go-to explanation for anything that goes on here, security reasons. Like, everything is in the name of security. So it was a lot to take in my few weeks in Palestine. And it's not like I didn't know before. I met many Palestinians in Sweden. I did my reading, read the human rights reports, lots of books, lots of documentaries. So you feel like you sort of know, right? That's how we usually, if you want to know anything about anything, you start doing reading, right? And you try to watch the YouTube videos and the documentaries to speak to the people from there, and then you feel like you start understanding. But there's another level of, I don't know what to call it, insight, understanding. Well, you feel it more when you travel there. And I really think we should have this holistic approach to knowledge in general, and never claim that we truly understand until we've gone and seen and felt and smelt and touched and all these things. Which was kind of, it made me realize how little I know about just about anything. Like, we know that there's a war in Yemen and it's horrible, but I haven't been there, so of course I don't really know. I know, but I don't really, it's the disconnect. I'm back in Sweden. I want to talk about Palestine with my friends. They haven't been there, so I feel like it's not really, we don't really understand. I can't really convey, like, words doesn't describe it to begin with. There aren't really words to describe all of this. Language doesn't do it justice. This 8-meter high concrete wall cutting across the land, what to say? And the atrocities in Gaza, like, horrible isn't enough of a word. There are no words. So I didn't really know what to do with myself. I continued reading. I wanted to learn more. It's just like a rabbit hole. You start reading and you go there and you just want to know more. It never stops. So I want to leave you with one book recommendation today in case you want to read something. I think this is an important book to read. It's called Our Harsh Logic by Breaking the Silence, which, for those of you that don't know, is an organization by Israeli soldiers that quote-unquote breaks the silence, still under Israeli military censorship, but still there are quite a few testimonies there that might be revealing, in case you don't know the stories already, where the Israeli soldiers talk about openly what they're doing inside Palestine and what their job inside Palestine is about. So just to give you some headlines so you know what it's about, the testimonies are something like this. And how you can impose so many curfews and expect people to live, and that they have a patrol to beat up Arabs and all these. This is just one of their many books. It has 300 testimonies. It's very telling, especially when it comes from the soldiers themselves, because it's very common when you speak about these quote-unquote controversial topics that someone will come and just say that you're just biased, you're just on one side, you're subjective, and blah blah blah. So it's good to hear what the soldiers are saying. And it's very good to listen to the Palestinians also. Very few people actually do that. So this is the family of Mohammed Abu Khader that I met in Istanbul. I met them at the same time as I met Rachel Corey's parents. And I'll tell you the stories of these two young people, for those of you that don't know their names. Mohammed was a 15-year-old boy. They were living in Jerusalem, him and his parents. These are his mom and dad. And one day, when he was coming home from school, he was attacked by settlers that beat him very bad. Really, really bad. And they put him in their car and drove him to a forest where they continued on beating him brutally, and eventually they forced gasoline down his throat and lit that on fire, burning him alive from the inside out, killing him. And I'm meeting his parents, and it's very difficult to find words. What do you say to them? I don't actually remember much of our conversation because I couldn't really find much to say. But and I couldn't believe that they could still have the ability to smile. But they were in Turkey. They were talking about their experience. We were at a peace award ceremony. They received a peace award from the Turkish government. And at the same award, I'm meeting the family of Rachel Corey, which, for those of you that don't know that name, was a young American activist with the ISM, the International Solidarity Movement, that went to Gaza in her early 20s. And as I think all of you are aware, Israel is carrying out a mass campaign of house demolitions, just bulldozing down and bombing to smitherness Palestinian buildings, houses and homes. You can read about it right there on the wall, house demolitions. So in Gaza, Rachel becomes friends with a doctor, and one day there is a bulldozer that's gonna demolish this doctor's house. And Rachel is braver than most of us. She stands in between the house and the bulldozer, arms stretched out to try and act as a human shield, to try and get the bulldozer not to demolish this doctor's home. But the bulldozer didn't stop. A caterpillar bulldozer just ran her over. So she's not with us anymore. And I'm meeting both the families at the same time, so it's a very emotional moment for me at least. And being in the refugee camps quite a lot in both Jordan and Lebanon and Palestine when I visited. I went to a few in Palestine as well. There are many camps, refugee camps for Palestinians inside Palestine and in Gaza. So 70% of the people in Gaza are refugees from the ethnic cleansing in 47 and 48. And in Irbid, outside of Irbid in Jordan, I'm meeting Ahmed, a very gentle and nice old man, and we're sitting down in his house, we're having a cup of tea, and he's sharing his life story with me, and I think it's very a typical life story of an old Palestinian. So I thought I'd share it with you too. He's around 80 when I met him in June last year, and his story begins when he was a boy, and when he was 8 years old, in the time of 1948, the time of the ethnic cleansing, when the Israeli soldiers surround this village outside of Jaffa with their guns, saying to all the villagers that if you don't pack up and leave right now, we'll open fire, we'll basically massacre you, we'll kill all of you. So of course they leave, they want to live. So Ahmed's father scrapes a few belongings together in a bag, takes his children, and takes the key to the house, locks the door, thinking that we'll come back soon. These soldiers will go away soon. Someone will come. Maybe the Jordan army will come and save us. Someone will come. We just have to leave temporarily. So he locks the door, few possessions. They make it to another neighboring village. A few days. They make it to the next neighboring village. They go through villages trying to find somewhere to settle. But they're just one family out of almost 1 million families being forced out of their homes at this time. So eventually they make it to Nablus, where they stay for a couple of years, until the year 1967, which for those of you that know your history is the year of the Six-Day War, when Israel launches a preemptive strike on Egypt, occupying the entire Sinai Peninsula of Egypt, occupying parts of Syria, and occupies the rest of Palestine. So at this time, Ahmed is in his 20s, and on the radio, they're saying that the Israeli soldiers are coming again. They're raping, they're killing, they're stealing, you have to flee. These are the rumors also spread by the Israeli soldiers for Palestinians to flee. So of course he packs his bags and he leaves with his family. They make it to a refugee camp on the border between Palestine and Jordan, where they stay for quite a short time because the camp gets bombed by Israeli fighter jets. And then he makes it to another refugee camp, which is, I don't know which number in his life. And that's the camp outside of Irbid. That's where he still is today. That's where I met him in June. Had a cup of tea with him, and he tells me that I've been a refugee all my life. All my life I've ran from the Israeli soldiers. And look at me, I'm old now. I'm an old man. I have one wish left, only one. I want to die, but not here. I want to die in my house, on my land. I don't want to be on this foreign land anymore. Enough. And he shows me the land deed, that's the piece of paper he's holding, saying that him and his family are the owners of this piece of land and that house. And he even shows me the key that his father gave to him, to his door, to his house in his village, saying, I just want to go back. That's it. That's the one wish left. But under the occupation, he's denied even that. So it brings me to why do a big walk. Now, I didn't sell all my things, because my things aren't worth money, really. But the things I could sell for money. I was a student in Sweden studying global studies, but once you know too much about this, you really feel some sort of moral responsibility, maybe some, not duty, but you really feel uncomfortable with reality. It really bothers you a lot. It bothers any person, I believe. So the question is what to do. And it's not only Palestine, it's a lot of places. There's a lot of injustice in the world. Did it become... So what to do, really? I wasn't sure what to do. How does change happen? If you want to stop this, if you want to save the world, what do you do? I don't know. They didn't teach me that during 12 years in Swedish school or at the university. I thought about this question a lot, how does change happen? And it almost always comes down to, I believe, and I think we have a lot of historical evidence for this, that when people mobilize on a mass scale, mounting insurmountable pressure on whatever government it is that commits violation, they need to feel pressure in order to change, because they don't nothing happens in this world without pressure, really. And we see a lot of evidence for this. How did the British leave India? It wasn't by their own volition, because suddenly one day they woke up and wanted to go home. How did apartheid end in South Africa? It wasn't because the regime wanted to end it, it was because of massive pressure. And I think when we see across civil rights movements and just historical gains for humanity in general, it's always sort of been like that. It's preceded by pressure, because power never concedes without a demand, and a demand without pressure backing it up is worthless. But how do you mount pressure? The Israeli government to stop human rights abuses. In this context, how do you do that? I'm still just a guy from Sweden, right? So you need a lot of people, obviously. But a lot of people aren't really aware of these stories from Palestine. They don't really know. If I go on the street of Bristol, I'm not sure how many people would be able to tell me the history of what's going on in Palestine and Rachel Corrie's fate and all these things. So how do you raise awareness? How do you make people aware of this? Well, I still wasn't sure. I can't just call up the media saying that I want to do an interview with the BBC. They'll ask me who I am. And it's not very credible. I'm just a student from Sweden. They won't have you, right? And universities, you can't just enter these spaces. You need some sort of reason, or they need to be interested. So I figured that if I walk to Palestine, it's a little interesting, it's very challenging, it's a little strange, it sounds a little bit crazy, it takes forever. So it's a good way of selling, getting into spaces, raising awareness, so that you can hopefully be a part of building this movement that I believe we need to make any sort of progress. That was the logic behind it, and it was very painful, which I think is good, because if you do stuff that's not painful, then no one really cares. This was my feet after a few days. It was really tough. It was way tougher than I imagined. And I had some life lessons from the road, such as if you sleep in high grass, you will have snail invasions and bugs everywhere. So that's the tip if you're going camping. Avoid high grass, find some nicer spaces. Weather was tough. Sometimes I had to sleep under bridges because of insurmountable amounts of rain, especially in Germany. Not pleasant nights, not comfortable whatsoever, but you can imagine your state of mind if you find this bridge more comfortable than like the woods. Like that's your option really, stay in the field or stay under something at least. Sometimes I would find abandoned buildings. It's not comfortable at all going to an abandoned house and trying to go inside. You know, I would play these scenarios in my head. What if someone is there? What do I say to them? Like I'm standing outside the door, I'm sort of testing if it's open, and it is open. Do you say hello or not? Do you sneak in or do you try to make noise? I'm still not sure. No, luckily no one was ever there, but I kept thinking like, they will be more scared of me probably than I will be of them. We'll both just be very scared when we see each other. And then what do we do? What do we say? And if we don't, this was in Turkey, and sometimes I would find small villages that I would pass through, and I would try my luck asking people, can I stay at your place? Because I'm walking to Palestine and all this. And they wouldn't speak English, but somehow you can communicate what you need. But not if both are very, very scared. Luckily that didn't happen. It was just me being scared all the time, being inside houses, hoping that no one's going to show up. But most nights were outside in the tent, which is also a little scary, you know, it's not comfortable sleeping. It got more comfortable after a while. I sort of accepted, like, whatever happens will happen. You're so exhausted after 10 hours on the road anyway, that you just fall asleep, you don't really care. You set up your tent, that's it. And I'm not an experienced, like, don't take me for a sports person. I'm not even an outdoors person. I never did any of this in my life before. First time I set up a tent is in this store where you buy tents. I asked the store clerk, like, please teach me. Like, I'll buy your tent if you teach me how to set it up. And so he sells me this piece of crap. You see the shape of that stick? That's the shape you get after you wake up in the middle of the night to a loud crack and realize that your life just became more difficult than it already was. And there's not much to do. This was in Germany also. You're outside in the middle of nowhere, you're in the forest, your tent breaks, then what? So I pack it up as normal and I continue walking and check the GPS, 3 days to the next city. So you sort of have to sleep with one stick for a while. And then I arrive in Dresden, where they still hold like Pegida extreme right Nazi marches every Monday. I stayed with a Palestinian family saying that, oh, the immigrants here, we don't go out on Mondays because that's where the Nazis march. What? They did not feel comfortable in this city. Like, it was insane. Maybe it was Tuesdays. Anyway, I go to this tent store in this city. I'm not very comfortable in this city. But there's a lot of Palestinians, so we're having a good time. And we're talking sort of about those people a lot. And I asked the store guy, like, I bought a tent, it broke, here's the stick, I need a new one. And he looks at the stick, and he says, like, where did you buy this? I said, in Sweden. He says, okay, it must be a Swedish stick then. I say, yeah, I need a new one. And he says, we have German sticks here. I say, okay, fine, I see your wall is full of sticks, just give me a stick. And he says, but we don't have your stick. I'm like, let's not get into racism with sticks. Just give me a tent stick, we're not talking about advanced things here. And he says, no, but we really don't have one because different countries have different sizes and thicknesses and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just looking at him like it's a tent stick. What are you talking about? Just give me a stick to the tent. He says, but really, we don't have your size and length. So I buy a much too long one, and I find a saw at a Palestinian guy's home, and we saw it off. I feel like MacGyver. And the new stick also breaks eventually, which really makes those are the hard parts, because you're alone all the time and there's no one to complain to. You just complain a lot in your head, like your feet are hurting and your stick is broken and it's raining. There's no one there. Like you can't sit down and cry if you want, but it's still raining. So eventually you'll get up and you'll continue, or you'll go back, but there's like nothing backwards either. There's just an empty road. You don't see anything backwards or forwards. So there's not a lot of choice. There's not much to do. So I continue walking. I really should have gotten something better than baby strollers, because they also break. I think the reason we call them strollers and not baby walkers is because take a city stroll, just 20 minutes. Don't go through countries, thousands of kilometers, because they really break. I went through 4 different ones. They're not built for walking. Like, don't let them fool you just because they have wheels. And they're not good in winter, especially not when the snow gets deep because of blizzards. I actually just remember now, I was followed by a dog on this picture. That was really nice. I had some company for a few hours until he just left me all alone and miserable. And I found 2 dogs also. I don't know why I'm talking about dogs. Sometimes I would be surrounded by packs of dogs, like 20 dogs just barking really loud, being right next to my legs. What do you do then? I'm not sure. I continued walking, trying to ignore them. Somebody told me once, don't look them in the eye. So I thought, let's not look at them too much and continue walking. If they get too close, I'll try to kick them, but they're more than me, like I'll lose. So there were a lot of intimidating moments, and I don't have answers. Don't ask me what to do with packs of dogs or in the middle of winter, because I don't know. I just kept walking, hoping that I would arrive on a sunnier day. And I am from Sweden, so you would presume that I'm more comfortable with snow than other people. That's a false presumption based on prejudice. In Sweden, we have nice houses with insulation. And when winter comes, we make a cup of tea, we go indoors, and we wait for summer. We don't go in the middle of the snow for 10 hours every single day. We don't set up camp in the snow. That's not what we enjoy. So that was a new experience. And it wasn't because I wanted to. This was in Bulgaria, and I'm walking with Google Maps. So if you want, this is a concrete tip, if you want to walk to Palestine, go take your phone, write Palestine, Google Maps, directions, boom, blue line, just go. And it takes a while. And Google Maps is very handy. It tells you where there are like hostels and shops to get food and stuff. But and sometimes you misinterpret it. You miss that it's actually a mountain that you're walking over, so it takes much longer and your plan for the day gets a little tweaked. And it doesn't tell you when there's a national holiday and when the hostels are going to be fully booked or not. So you might end up in situations like this. 2 hostels, tiny village in Bulgaria, they cannot possibly be fully booked, both of them. Like on Google Maps, it looks like 20 people living in this village. But they're booked. And I'm calling them, and I'm like, please, I need a place to stay. Like, I really don't have a place. I don't know this country and this city. And the other person on the line says, like, sorry, we're fully booked because there is some Bulgarian, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't care. Just, is the 2 square meters in the corner of your basement also booked? Because that's really all that I need. And he says, no, we can't do it like that because that's not our policy. I'm like, I still don't care. I want a place to sleep. Like, do you want me to sleep in the snow? He's like, I'm sorry, it's not my problem. I'm like, yes, you're right. It's not. It's my problem. And I end up in the snow. And I'm thinking to myself that people freeze to death in their sleep. And I don't want that to happen. So I take all my clothes from the backpack and put it inside the sleeping bag. And I'm just hoping, like, tomorrow is going to be a good morning if I wake up. And then I hear voices, and I'm starting to think, like, I'm going crazy. This is not a good sign. And then I realize I'm not crazy, which is still not a good sign because there are actual voices outside the tent. There are people there in the forest, in the snow. And I really don't know what to do. And they're coming closer, and I'm seeing that it lights up. They have flashlights. They're shining at me. They found me. Who are these people? They're coming very close now. They stop outside the tent. What to do? I try to think of what to do. If there's a lot of bad people outside the tent in the middle of the night, in the forest, in the snow, in Bulgaria, who do you call? I don't know. Don't call your parents, they can't do much. Do you call the police? I don't know. Like, they don't speak English maybe. I couldn't really think of what to do, and I was tired. I was trying to sleep, and they wake me up. Like, so you can't really think straight. So I sit up, I put on a shirt and another shirt and another shirt and a jacket because it's really cold. And the only thing I can think of is to open the tent and say hello. So that's what I do. I unzip it, I open it, they shine the flashlight in my face, I don't see anything. I try to say something, and they say first, "What are you doing?" And then I see who they are. It's the same people that have been coming almost every day for almost a year. It is the cops. And I'm really surprised, because I don't expect police like in the night. I expect them during the day. So I asked them back, "What are you doing?" That's the first thing I can think of. And they asked me, "What are you doing?" I say, "I'm trying to sleep." It went fine, then you came. And we get into the same conversation. It's equally impossible every time. Nobody believes you. I understand why, but it gets frustrating, because it's a story that you cannot sell to anyone. Doesn't matter if you're a good salesperson. So they ask me where I'm going. I say, "Palestine." They say, "What?" Like, "I'm going to Palestine." And they don't know what that is. They're like, "Where is that? Pakistan?" I say, "No. It's in the Middle East." They're like, "Are you from the Middle East?" I say, "No." Like, "So where are you from?" "I'm from Sweden." They say, "What? Are you going to Sweden?" I say, "No, I'm going to Palestine." They can't understand this. And then they ask me, like, "Do you know where you are, sir?" Like, I'm like, "Yeah, in Bulgaria." They're like, "What are you doing in Bulgaria?" And they don't buy that it's on the way, from Sweden to Palestine, but it is. The only way to make the police go away, I learned from experience, is to just give them your passport. The first thing they do, like, they don't even need to open their mouth. When they stop you, just give them your passport, that's it. That's the fastest way to continue on your way, because they never stop until they took your passport and made a phone call. They never stop until they do that. So I give them my passport, and they look at it, and they start laughing like, "You really are from Sweden. So what are you actually doing here?" I say, "I'm not lying, I'm going there." They're like, "But how? Where's your car?" I'm like, "I'm walking there." They just don't believe it, they don't get it, but they say, "Okay, fine, it's no problem." And I'm thinking to myself, I know it's no problem. Like, the only problematic thing was if you were going to be aggressive or something. I'm trying to sleep, but thank you for not making problems for me. The first time the cops come is in Sweden, and I have a strange impulse. I ask the police officer to take a picture of me, because I find it funny, like, why is the police coming? I'm just walking, but he's coming. And I don't know why I asked that, I don't know why he accepts. I mean, he took a picture, that's the license plate and everything. I thought it was funny the first time, but then it's not so funny the second time, and the third time, and the fourth. And I was on the road almost a year, 11 months. And almost every day, I'm not exaggerating, almost every single day they come. It becomes to the point where it's very strange, and you become suspicious if they don't come. Like, where are they? Like, it's about that time of day now, that somebody should have called the police, and they should have found me somewhere. And they come in all shapes and sizes and forms, civilian clothes, tapping you on the shoulder. Now this time. There's no battery? Right. So, it's really unbelievable. Like, walking is really intimidating. In Austria, the SWAT team came. You know the SWAT team? Like, the big police officers with big guns, like, running out of the car, being all like, anti-terror, blah, blah, blah. I'm sitting at a cafe, having a coffee. Here is the window. I'm sitting right by the window, because I have the big, the baby stroller. It's not really, like, you can't take it into a cafe. It's just really weird. It's strange. So I have it on the outside, just so I can see it. I sit right by the window. And I see this huge car coming up, like, really fast, stopping. All these people running out with their guns. I'm like, what's going on? They run to my car, they look around, and like, they're really close to me. I just wave at them, have my coffee, and like, that's my stuff, don't touch. Like, what's up? And they run inside the cafe, like, "Is this yours?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Come on." Okay. So I go out, and immediately one of them says, "Where are your papers?" And I'm like, "I don't have any papers." And I see how he's like, "Refugee," and I'm like, "I have a passport, here's my passport." And he takes it and goes away, and all the others, they take me to my baby stroller, like, "What is this? Explain this." I'm like, "It's my stuff. It's a backpack, and it's a flag." "What's this flag?" "It's Palestine's flag." And one of them is really mad. He's screaming. He's an old Austrian guy screaming in German, and there's a young woman translating, looking very bored and slightly bothered. And he's saying, like, "You have to take out all your stuff from the backpack and put it on the ground." I'm like, "All the stuff? All the stuff? Take it out now!" And it's gonna take forever. I don't tell him, like, "I have a lot of stuff. Do you want to be here for hours?" Like, and he says, "Do it very, very slowly." Like, "That's gonna take forever, man." Like, and the ground is dirty. I don't want to do that. "Do it!" And he has a gun, so okay, I do it. So I take out my underpants. I show them to him. These are my underwear. I take out a spoon. This is a spoon. Like very, very slowly, and I'm very annoyed. And then the guy comes back with the passport. He says something in German. And, you know, I understand a little German because Swedish and German is quite similar. Not really, but we understand some words. And I understand something along the lines like, he's fine, he's clear, he's not a terrorist, blah, blah, blah. So then he says, like, you have to take down the flag. And that gets me annoyed, because the police tell me in all the countries to take down the flag. And it's pretty much bullshit. I tell them that, do you have a law forbidding flags in your country, in Austria? They're like, yes, it's illegal. Like, okay, show me that law, please. Can you refer to it? No, you have to take it down right now. So if there is a law, I'd be happy to oblige, but if you're lying, I'm not going to do that. It says, take it down now, start screaming in German, and the translator, like, she doesn't even bother. It's just screaming. And then after he finishes, she says that if you don't take it down, we will take it from you. I'm like, you're threatening with stealing my things? She's like, yes, take it down now or we take it. So I say, I'll take it down, but I'll put it back up once you leave. They're like, okay, if you do that, we arrest you. They say this to me, like, can you believe? It's so annoying. I'm having a coffee and I have to deal with this now. I'm very tired after working an entire day, so I say, fine, arrest me. And I take it down and I watch them leave. And like, not when they're very far away, I like look at them and put it back up and I go inside. And you know, all of the people in the cafe, they're just staring. And I don't know what to say, like, I'm not a terrorist. There's so many police all the way. I'll just share one more police story from Turkey. And Turkey supports Palestine quite a lot. Turkish people are very supportive of Palestine, so I'm really surprised. I'm with two Palestinians who are working together. 90% of this journey is by myself, but in Turkey I'm joined by two Palestinians. They couldn't come to Europe because of Palestinians can't travel pretty much anywhere because their passport is not recognized. And sometimes they don't even have a passport, and sometimes you just have a Jerusalem ID, which Israel threatens if you do anything, we'll take your Jerusalem ID so you can't return to your home anymore. It's very complicated, but basically Palestinians can't travel. So I'm meeting them in Turkey, and we're doing an interview with the Turkish media. So there's a couple of journalists, a cameraman, and then all these cops show up. And from that order, that's the normal police, the blue is the military police, the white is the Secret Service police, the people in civilian clothes with this little earpiece looking all beef, you see a gun, and they're walking like this pretending to be civilians, but we all know exactly who they are. And they just like, take everybody. They take the journalists, they take us, they take my stuff, and I'm like, what's going on? They ask, like, what is this flag? It's the Palestinian flag. What's going on? They say, you cannot have flags. I say, like, the hell I can't. Like, it's a Palestinian flag, you should know this. They're like, we have to verify the flag. Okay. You do that. And he tells us to hold up the flag like that. Like, you have to hold it up, he tells us. So we say, that's fine. And then I give my phone to the journalist saying, like, now we're posting for the police and I cannot believe the surrealism of my new life. So can you please take this picture and like memorialize this moment? The journalist takes this picture, the police takes these pictures, send them off to Istanbul, and I guess the headquarters find them a little bit silly because they get back the verification says, yes, it's the Palestinian flag. And they say, oh, it's okay, it's all fine, there's no problem, it's verified, you can go. Okay. We're having dinner at a Turkish restaurant, and we hear the other people, like on the other table, saying like, are those guys the PKK? We hear that conversation, and we look at them like, do we look like the what? Okay, I admit, we look a little suspicious. Like, we're carrying around a huge baby stroller, we have a big flag, and like my friend has a kofia on his head. Okay, we look like that, but please. And there's this other moment in Turkey, we're outside of Istanbul, and we see a man approaching us, smiling, like he's so happy, and his arms are stretched like this, doesn't say anything, and we look at each other like, what's going on? He's coming very close, and he just walks up to my friend and just gives him a like very warm hug, which is a nice way to greet someone, I guess. It was a little strange, and he looks like us, like shining, so happy, and he asks us, are you the Mujahideen? And we're like, no! What's going on? No, why do you think this? I've been called so many things this journey. Maybe that's why I get interrogated all the time. I've been called PKK, Daesh, Mujahideen, terrorist, Al-Qaeda. I've been called everything from people on the road. I don't get it. I'm Swedish. This is the Palestinian flag. That's all there is to the story. One of the only positive police moments I get invited to lunch by police officers. You can imagine how suspicious I am when they ask me, like, do you want to come for lunch? I'm like, no. In Bulgaria, they arrested me while denying that they were arresting me. They came in a big car saying, like, get in the car, we want to ask you some questions at the station. I'm like, you can ask me whatever you want right here on the border in Bulgaria. They're like, no, get in the car. I'm like, if you want to ask me something, fine, I'm here. But I don't want to go to the station. Are you arresting me? They're like, no, we're not arresting you, get in the car. I'm like, so do I have a choice? Can I walk away? No, you cannot get in the car. So you are arresting me. No, we are not. We just want to ask you questions. I'm like, ask away. We want to ask you at the station. I don't want that. Like, it's back and forth. It's so stupid. But eventually, I get in the car because I didn't really have a choice. Like, lots of men with guns. What can you do? And they take me to the station. It takes about 3 hours. So I'm really suspicious, you know, when the police comes. I think that they're trying to trick me into, like, revealing that I'm a refugee or something so that they can arrest me. But they really did just want to treat me to lunch. And so we go and have lunch, and it's amazing. And you see that we're holding up a piece of paper. One of the police officers in Turkey wrote a long letter, prayer of support to Palestine, saying that the Turkish police force supports Palestine a lot. We love you, we know that you're suffering under occupation, and you have the full force of the Turkish police in your back. And he asked me to take this paper to Palestine. I thought it's very nice gesture. So I put it in my pocket and continue walking to Palestine. But before I get there, I just want to make a detour and show you some more of the crazy absurdities, the injustice. How many of you recognize who this is on the picture? Quite a few of you. So those of you that do not, it's Ahed Tamimi, a Palestinian young girl. She's 16 in this picture. You see her in handcuffs. She comes from the village of Nabi Saleh. It's a Palestinian village on the West Bank in Palestine. This village has a natural spring where they go and get their water. And one day, Israel decides to build an illegal settlement close to the village. The settlers go to the spring saying that this is a Jewish spring, Jewish water, no Palestinians allowed. Palestinians, of course, become furious. You cannot steal our water, so they try to take the water anyway, but the army is there. They cannot go to the water, so they start doing protest marches. Every Friday, they've been demonstrating for over a decade against land grab and theft. So her village gets raided all the time, and Israel even installed a balloon over the village with cameras, 24 hours surveillance of the entire village. Like, there's a big surveillance balloon hovering above the village, if you can imagine this. Her house has been raided over 100 times by the army. Her father has been tortured and arrested several times by the army. Her mother has been shot by the army. She has had friends and relatives killed by the army. And then the army shows up at her doorstep 1 hour after having shot her 15-year-old cousin in the head with a rubber bullet, which, you know, are not the rubber bullets, are steel bullets with a thin rubber layer. Rubber bullet sounds innocent. Her cousin was lucky to survive this rubber bullet being shot in the head. Several people die all the time from rubber bullets. They're very lethal. Not as lethal as non-rubber bullets, but still lethal. So they shot him in the head. 1 hour after, the army is on her doorstep, like literally outside her house. She's furious, of course, and she tries to get him out of her property, and she gives one of them a slap. So I thought I'd show you that slap, because that's something worth seeing. And then Israeli politician's commentary of what he thought of that. So there's always some technical errors, but we will solve it, don't worry. You have some time to get excited for a slap video.
My name is Oren Khazan. I'm the youngest member of the Knesset, actually member of the Israeli parliament.
When you saw that video of her slapping the soldier, what went through your mind?
If I was there, she would finish in the hospital, for sure. Nobody could stop me. I would kick her face if you will act with terror, we have the right to go inside your houses and terminate terror.
A slap isn't terrorism.
No, a slap is terrorism, believe me. A slap is a terrorism.
Apologies for the laggy video and you missed the slap, but you can see it on YouTube. You know, there's so many quotes, and I could tell them to you, but I think it's better, you know, nobody really believes it if you say that these are the comments made by people in the parliament, in the Knesset, today. So what happens to Ahed after that slap? Well, she gets arrested in the middle of the night. The army shows up at her doorstep. Middle of the night, many armed soldiers. And when the army knocks on your door, you have two choices. You open or you don't have a door anymore. So she gets dragged off to an Israeli prison and a detention facility where she gets interrogated. Her family doesn't know where she goes. She doesn't have access to a lawyer or parents. She's a minor. And the video of her interrogation leaked, so I thought I might show it to you. The majority of Palestinian children that goes through these processes of interrogation and imprisonment, they report torture, they report sleep deprivation, they report being tied up in stress positions for hours. The majority of them. You can read the reports if you're interested, just ask me later, I can send you some. And in this video that I'm about to show you, her interrogation, so the soldiers are showing her a video on the laptop of one of the demonstrations in her village, where of course all her friends and family are, and they're naming names of her loved ones, threatening her. And no lawyer present, no family present. These videos aren't going very well.
Is it our internet?
ليش؟ بدنا نتعلم، بدكش؟ ناخذ كل واحد ها، بدكش ناخذ كل واحد، هناك، تعرفي النور، تعرفي مروان، تعرفي أسامة، تعرفي مرح، تعرفي بدك تعرفي كله، ناخذ كل مكان، كذا ما بدك تتعلم، خرب للهاي، هيك وهيك، بالإيدك.
Well, basically threatening to take her friends and family if she doesn't cooperate. And this goes on for days, and most of the hours during those days. So what happens to her after a slap? What happens in Palestine if you slap a soldier? She gets sentenced to prison. It's a very lenient prison sentence, like in the Israeli-Palestine context, for a Palestinian. She was getting a lot of attention. It would be much worse, I think, if she didn't have all this international spotlight on her. She gets sentenced to 8 months in prison. It's a bit absurd, she's 16. But still, that's what happened. Her mother also got sentenced to prison for the crime of filming the slap. She was the one filming. And when she gets out, immediately Israel forbids her from traveling. Anyway, she gets a travel ban after serving the 8 months in prison. Because Israel doesn't want her to, travel the world and tell everyone the story of what's going on. That wouldn't be good PR. But she's not the only one, of course. Every year, hundreds and hundreds of children are being arrested from the streets, from their beds. In Palestine, 500 to 700 is the usual figure by Adamer, a Palestinian organization counting children that goes to jail. These are statistics from July last year from that organization. Last year, 270 kids in prison, 446 in administrative detention, which means to basically just arrest someone and throw them into jail on secret charges for an unlimited period of time, like undisclosed. Completely illegal, of course. Happens on a daily basis. And on the topic of justice, I thought I'd just might show you Ayelet Shaked, the current Minister of Justice in Israel, and two of the quotes she shared on her Facebook. The first one saying that this is a war between two people. Who is the enemy? Or the Palestinian people. This is the Minister of Justice. The same minister that thought that 10 years in jail for throwing a stone was not enough. Way too lenient. Imprisoning someone for 10 years for throwing a stone. She upped the prison sentence to 20 years. This is that same minister. Second quote she shared on her Facebook, it's a little genocidal. Talking about Palestinians, she wrote that they are all enemy combatants, and this also includes the mothers of the martyrs, the dead Palestinians, who send them to hell with flowers and kisses. They should follow their sons, meaning to hell. Nothing would be more just. They should go as should the physical homes in which they raised the snakes, otherwise more little snakes will be raised there. It's calling for the death of Palestinian mothers so that they can't have more children, and the demolishment of their homes. Minister of Justice. And to juxtapose Ahed Tamimi's 8 months in prison, I thought I might show you El Rosaria, an Israeli soldier that was caught on tape executing a Palestinian. So there was a Palestinian man lying on the ground, wounded, and Elor casually strolls up to him, takes his gun against his head and just pulls the trigger. It's caught on video, and what's unusual about it is that it got a reaction, so there was some pressure to indict him. Israel pressed charges, and people went out into the streets in thousands to protest. You would imagine that they would protest the behavior, the conduct, the soldier. The protests were about the charges themselves. They shouldn't send him to prison in the first place. He's innocent, he's one of us, free the soldier. Gets named Man of the Year in an influential Israeli magazine. Ultimately, he gets 9 months in prison for this. Gets out a few days earlier to make it to his brother's wedding. Becomes sort of a superstar, tours, gives talks and lectures. It's that 8 months. This is without even mentioning Gaza. And as I said before, you can't use words to describe the enormity and the suffering. I'll give it a shot, but forgive me for not doing it justice. I don't think many people can, if anyone. So Gaza is one of the most densely populated areas on Earth. 2 million people living, and it's very small. You should understand the scale. So from the long side, it's just about 40 kilometers. Since I know how long it takes to walk 40 kilometers, it takes 8 hours. So 8 hours is from one side to the other. Running would be a lot less. And the short side, it's not big at all. I mean, it's a very, very small place. It's more densely crowded than Tokyo, Gaza. So during the last decade, it's been invaded 3 times. 2014, 2012, 2008-09. It has had thousands of tons of bombs. Thousands of tons of bombs dropped on residential areas, on schools, hospitals, power plants, flour mills, aquifers, everything. In 2014, Israel razed to the ground 18,000 homes. 18,000. And people call it a war, but that gives you the imagination of 2 equal sides, 2 armies facing off, battling. On the Israeli side, of course, any person dying is a tragedy. It shouldn't happen. The Israeli side, there was one house demolished. 18,000 to 1. 2014, Israel dropped bombs killing 550 children. On the Israeli side, 1. This is the ratio. Over 2,000 people were killed in Gaza. And this is only 5 years ago now. This is very, very recent. On the Israeli side, 13. over 2,000, 500 children, 13. And, it's a humanitarian catastrophe. 97% of the drinking water is unfit for human consumption. It's not an accident. The aquifer has been destroyed. The sewage system goes just straight into the Mediterranean. The water is poisonous. The choice that Palestinian parents have is either to give their children poisonous water, slowly killing them, or no water at all. So do you die slowly or do you die fast? This is the situation. And there's of course no economy. Nothing goes in or out because it's under an illegal blockade. It constitutes the crime of collective punishment, illegal under international law. They can't even fish because the Navy is there opening fire all the time on the fishermen, fishing. There are some natural resources further from the coast, gas that Israel is taking. Of course, the airspace is also dominated by Israel. Gaza has no airport. They had an airport. After the Oslo Accord, they got an airport. Israel destroyed it, dropped bombs on it. They had a seaport, a harbor. Israel dropped bombs on it, destroyed it. Every single week, since March 30th, the people in Gaza have been demonstrating. Israel's response has been the same as it has always been when Palestinians have demanded anything, such as freedom, such as dignity, the right to go back to their homes. They have opened fire. I didn't even mention when they dropped white phosphorus on a UN school. This UN school called Israel, don't quote me on the number, I think it was 17 times, giving them their coordinates, saying that we are a UN school, we're a UN facility, don't bomb us. Here is our coordinates, don't drop bombs on us. Then they drop white phosphorus. Like napalm, burning people. I could show you pictures of children and medical personnel and all people being incinerated, but that's the stuff of nightmares. You can Google it. It happened. You can just imagine. It was serving as a refugee shelter at the time when it got bombed, this UN school. So in the middle of these protests, which are the largest in the world, to my knowledge, I don't know anywhere else that has had sustained mass protests for almost a year at this point. In the middle of these protests, the Israeli Minister of Defense comes out saying that there are no innocent people in Gaza whatsoever. There are 1 million children living there. They're slowly dying because they don't have drinking water. And he says, no innocence. Every single Friday, even though we don't read much about it on the news. They have been met with violence, with tear gas, but first and foremost with bullets, and not just normal bullets, exploding bullets. They have ordered snipers to shoot the demonstrators with explosive bullets that goes inside your body and blows up. And they have shot journalists, killing many. They have shot disabled people. They have shot medical people, Razan Anajar, a young woman, being shot and killed by Israeli snipers for giving first aid to the people that are wounded by Israeli snipers for demanding their freedom. And I met some of them. When I was at the hospital in Jordan, Jordan has a security cooperation agreement with Israel, allowing Palestinians to go from Palestine to Jordan to get treatment. And now there has been over 20,000 people injured in Gaza during this last year. There was 6 people at the hospital when I was there. There have been thousands and thousands of people wounded, being shot, their legs amputated. Thousands. And there were 6 people that, I mean, Israel isn't famous for giving permits. And they're telling me the story of when they were there, the guy in the wheelchair. It requires a certain amount of bravery or desperation for you to go to a protest where you know that on the other side there are snipers shooting and killing the people there. That requires some courage. You don't just do it. It's not an easy decision, right? So he told me that he had been afraid. It had gone several Fridays where he hadn't mustered that courage, but this Friday he did it. This Friday he was going to join his brothers and his sisters and go to the fence and hold a flag and preserve his dignity and demand freedom. And so he did. He got on the bus. He gets off, and it's a very chaotic scene. There are tires burning. There's smoke. They do it to create a smoke screen for the Israeli snipers, so they come to see them and shoot them. It doesn't work, of course. And people are screaming. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people. He gets off the bus and he takes in the scenery. There's like quite a chaotic scenery. Many people. And he takes a few steps, and then he finds himself on the ground. And he doesn't understand what's going on. He looks at his leg and he's just seeing a pool of blood. He realizes, they shot me. He just got off the bus. A few steps, they shot him. The guy in the bed was taking a selfie to send to his friends and family. I'm at the protest when they shot him. Show me a picture of his phone being smashed by a bullet. In the middle of all this, the education minister of Israel is being asked on the army radio, like a quite obscene question if you ask me, like if he would instruct the army to shoot and kill children, Palestinian children who breached the border fence. And he says that they aren't children, they are terrorists. This is the education minister, the same education minister that banned a book containing a love story between a Jewish woman and a Palestinian man because he wanted to keep the race pure. He doesn't like racial mixing. Don't give the kids ideas. This is what it looks like on the Israeli side of the fence. It's not a border, let's be very clear about that. Israel never defined its borders, never declared its borders, saying these are the borders of Israel. Never did that. So there's just a fence, separating the Gaza Strip from Israel and Palestine. And you might be wondering why. Like, how can this happen? How can this be? This is 21st century. Why isn't anyone doing anything? Well, Trump and the United States is not just Trump, it's every single American president. I mean, Obama was extremely supportive, not in words, but in deeds, allowing the settlements to expand, etc. It was Obama upping the military assistance to Israel from $3 billion to $3.8 billion a year, translating to $10 million a day. So $10 million a day to Israel to buy weapons from the United States. So free $10 million of weapons every single day. Protected diplomatically, with bullying tactics. There was a report written by the UN condemning Israel, accusing them and proving that they are committing the crime of apartheid against the Palestinian people. Very few people read that report. When it came out, the US went after the author of the report, mounted massive pressure, forcing her to resign from the UN. That was the response. Never got factually challenged, as far as I'm aware, but the author was forced to resign instead. And whenever there are votes in the UN, especially in the Security Council, there is, and in the General Assembly, there's one veto in the Security Council, it's the US, and in the General Assembly, every resolution on Palestine-Israel, I think they're listed here somewhere on this wall of text, literally a wall of text on the wall. It's always something like 178 countries to 4, or 180 countries to 3. It's always Israel, the US, and a couple of islands in the Pacific voting against any sort of steps being taken to resolve any of this. So you can imagine, after hearing me speak now for a while, and I'm wrapping up, this is the end, that Israel they weren't very welcoming when I was coming there. They recently blacklisted 20 organizations that supports the BDS, one of them being the American Friendship Association, famous for helping Jews escape the Holocaust, but now they support the boycott of Israel, hence they are blacklisted, you're not allowed to go there. Netanyahu investing $72 million, hiring generals and ex-intelligence officers to combat BDS, combat activism. They don't take lightly, and they don't like when people talk like I'm talking. So of course they're not very welcoming. So I basically get there to the border. I've been walking for 12 hours, I'm kind of exhausted, and it's the day I've been thinking about for a year. I mean, what's gonna happen now? I've arrived, finally, this is the day, this is it. Do I get into Palestine or no? I made like on Facebook, I made one of these little polls, like you can do that. What do you think, like yes or no? Am I getting in? Like 95% no, like. And I was thinking it as well, but I'm optimistic, you know, I want to think the best, I want to stay positive. There's 5% maybe, I will get in. So I get to the interrogation facilities, I'm a little nervous. I'm actually mostly tired, a little nervous and like what's going on. There's this huge facility, it feels like an airport thing. You go to a guy behind the desk, he asks for your passport, you give it. He asks you tiredly like, what are you gonna do in Israel? I say, I'm here for a visit. He says, okay. Type something on the computer, and I see him stopping, like, looking at the screen, like, they want to talk to you. I say, oh really, what could that be about? So I go and sit down in the waiting room. Eventually someone comes and calls my name, takes me to a little office. There's just a desk, one guy sitting on the other side of it, and me. He has a computer screen, like he types some things. He says, please sit down. I sit down. He says, okay, why are you here? And I say, I'm here to visit. He says, okay, where are you gonna go? I say, I'm gonna go to Jerusalem first, and then we'll see. I say, okay, where are you gonna stay? And you know, I didn't really have a plan because I knew they're not gonna let me in. So I didn't bring my real phone because I was afraid they were gonna take it, hack it. I didn't bring my computer, same thing. I just brought some clothes because I knew this is a one-way ticket back, not there. So I didn't have a place to stay. So I said, I'm gonna find a hotel once I get there. He says, okay. So you've been here before? Yes. Who do you know here? Do you know any people here? And I really don't feel like naming names, especially Palestinians, because I don't know what's going to happen to them. Of course I don't name any names. And unfortunately I don't have many Israeli friends that I can name either. That would have helped if I would have had many Israeli friends in Palestine or Israel that I could have referred to, but I didn't. So I said, I'm going to meet new friends, hopefully. There's a lot of nice people here. He said, oh yes, you don't know who you're going to meet, you don't know where you're going to stay. Do you think that Google is lying? He asked me. I said, what? And he has this screen, and he turns it towards me, and he just has me my name Googled, and every single picture is me with a huge Palestinian flag. He says, "Is this you?" You know, I feel very proud at that point. I say, "Yes, that's me. What about it?" He says, "Okay, well, tell me why you're really here." I say, "I told you." He says, "No, tell me the truth now." And this goes back and forth. I say, "I told you I'm here to visit. I'm gonna go there first, and I'm not sure." He says, "Oh, you're not sure where you're gonna go? You walk 1 year, you don't know where you're gonna go?" I'm like, "Yeah, that doesn't sound very plausible now, does it?" But that's the truth. He asked me very specific things like, "Are you involved with ship to Gaza? Yes or no?" You know, the Freedom Flotilla trying to break the siege that people attacked, killed by Israel in 2010. Or was it 8 or 10? I said, "No, I'm not involved with them." He's like, "Are you sure, really? This is your final answer?" I'm like, "Yes." Now, I know tons of people there, but I'm not an official member, so I could say with a clear conscience, no. And this goes on, and eventually they send you out, and they probably check all the answers, they call you back in, they say, "You want to change your story?" And I noticed they're so professional. He writes down all the things, and he says, no, you're lying. And then he changes the paper like this, like on a notebook, like new page, you can tell your real story now. And you know that if you change one word of your story, then you're out. They're just looking to like make you change your story in a little way so they can say, "You're lying, you're not getting in." They're really pressing you on that. But it's not really getting anything, because I don't have much to say. I'm here to visit. I don't have a plan. I'm gonna travel around and then go back home. Like that's the extent of it. And he doesn't believe it. So eventually when he sends me back out, and it's like 4 a.m. in the morning at that point, because I had worked for 12 hours and that took 6 hours, I fall asleep in the waiting room, waiting for them to come and say something. And they come like, Benjamin. They wake me up and like, "Oh, what? You've been denied entry to the state of Israel." I said, "Oh, really? How come?" They said 2 things. 1, you're going to go to the village of Nabi Saleh and you're going to organize a demonstration, take all the people and do something bad. I'm like, "What?" And 2, you were lying during the interrogation. I said, "What?" It was really strange. I'm like, "Can I get that in writing?" They're like, "Yeah, we can give you a paper." But I didn't understand, like, where did they get this Nabi Saleh business from? Like, I wasn't gonna do that. I mean, it's a good idea, but that wasn't my plan. And second, like, they don't need me, some foreigner, to go and make demonstrations. They're making demonstrations every Friday, and the Israeli army knows this. They don't need others to come and organize for them. They're more than capable themselves. And so that was that. They sent me back. But it's not really that, because this project was never about just walking to Palestine. All the marches in history are symbolic. They imply meaning. You don't walk for the sake of walking. Some people do that, meditation and other things, and that's fine. This wasn't one of those walks. This was a walk to bring awareness, to build a movement, to end human rights violations. That's what I want to do. That's why I did the walk. I would never set out on a 1-year walk, because things change when we take action. And awareness is not enough. Awareness is the first step. You can be the most intelligent person on earth. You can know everything, have read every book, be so smart, but you sit at home and you watch TV, doesn't make any difference at all. Like, your level of intelligence doesn't matter if you never do anything. You need to also do things. You can't just be aware of all the atrocities in the world. If you never do anything, then it's as if you didn't know anything at all to begin with. At least if you want to change. And I think that awareness comes with that desire for change. We cannot just see children not having water without, like, for those of us with a moral compass, we can't do that. And things have a tendency to change once we do things like this, once we demand. With pressure, because demand without pressure is not going to achieve much. Demands with pressure, I think that's the way forward. And they can look different. Of course, there are different strategies. Marching, big protests are one thing. Political lobbying is another thing. Israel is very good with that in the US. They've made many states forbid, illegalize the BDS movement, if you can believe that. It's illegal in many states to boycott Israel. Like, you can get a fine for that and go to jail. Recently, a woman was fired from her job for not signing a loyalty oath to Israel. She was a speech pedagogue for children. And on her contract, she had to pledge that she wasn't going to boycott Israel. And she said, "No, I will not do that. This is not a part of the job description. Why are you requiring, like, for me to take some sort of loyalty thing to another country?" And sorry, that's the law in Texas now. You're fired. Like, we want to renew your contract. This is the reality. So pressure can look different, but we have one thing on our side that money cannot buy. We have morals, we have the truth, and we have justice. we have universal values, and we have principles. Because I don't care about Palestine. I don't care about Palestine. I'm not a nationalist. I don't care about the country. I care about people. I don't care about Israel. I don't care. I care about people. That's it. And when you see people suffer, then you should do something. Doesn't matter what nationality or anything. This is why I believe that the time is now to do more. I mean, walking to Palestine once, activism is not about like a one-off, a project. You can't say, I'm an activist, I did a project, I did my part, now it's up to others. It's more of a way of living, always trying to live in a conducive way to produce the change that you want. And it's a long struggle. I mean, Martin Luther King said that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I believe it's right. And I believe that we need to be in it for the long run and never stop until we get the results that we want. So me and my friends are launching a new project. It's another walk to Palestine, but this time it's not just us. It's not just me. We're going to be many. We're calling the project Humanity for Palestine, and you can go into this website and sign up if you want. This time we're starting at The Hague, at the ICC, highlighting the 2 cases pending. The case Protective Edge, where Israel killed over 2,000 people and hundreds of children. It was a war crime. The case is at the ICC. Not many people know about it. We're highlighting it. That's why we're starting there. We're marching in solidarity with the people in Gaza, because Gandhi's biggest question was how to get people to act on the things that they already know are wrong. Awareness is not enough. How to spur people into action, and that's the essence of nonviolence. And people get Gandhi wrong. He's more hardcore than most people believe. He said that you need to get your skull cracked and your bones broken. That's the only way to spur people into action, to actually get them out in the streets and demand something. But for Palestine, that's exactly what they're doing. They're getting their skulls shot at and their bones blown off by snipers. But it's not working. And if this doesn't work in Gaza, then nothing works. They've tried armed struggle, think what you will of that, but they've tried it and it failed. Now they're trying non-violence. Massive numbers marching non-violently, demanding justice and freedom, right of return. Nobody's caring. Where is the media? Where is the outrage? Is there a solidarity community in the world? Did you see a solidarity march for the people in Gaza? It's tiny. Where is it? And to not plunge them into despair, plunge them into thinking that nothing will ever work. We have over 200 people have been shot and killed. And if this fails, if this march fails, this is a crucial moment in time. Imagine what they will think, how they will feel. What is the next step? We brought tens of thousands of people non-violently and it didn't work. What's the next step? And for it to work, they need to spur people into action. We are those people. We are the people that needs to be spurred into action. We can't sit at home being very aware anymore. The time for awareness is over. We know. We know what's going on. If you don't know, read any human rights report. We know. The time is to act. And that's why we're launching the biggest international solidarity march in history. People never do big marches across borders, and you don't need to join the entire way. I understand we're normal people, we're working, we have families, we have kids. The point is to have many people the entire way, from the start to the finish. And if you can join for a week, that's wonderful. If you can join for a day, we still need you. We just need to be a lot of people all the way. They don't need to be the same people. So we need you. And the Palestinian people need you, because if this doesn't work, their march, then they only have despair left. And the time to act is now. So I hope that you will all join me in this, and that I'll see you in summer. We're starting the 15th of May, commemorating, what is it now, 71 years of dispossession, of ethnic cleansing. That's when we're starting from the ICC, and the route and where we will be, it will all be on this website. You can contact me here on social media if you want to ask more about this. If you want to ask about any source of anything I've said tonight, I'd be happy to give you reading recommendations, documentaries, human rights reports, if you're more interested in getting deeper into this. But just to underline again, knowing is not enough. The time to act is now. And they're screaming for the international community to do something to help them. And we are that international community. And I hope that we will answer their call and hopefully end the suffering of at least the 2 million people living in Gaza. It's just one step, and in the blockade towards the longer step for peace and human rights in that region. It's long overdue, and we can do a lot for them. So I hope we do it together. Thank you. Yeah, if you're wondering anything, I can hang around for a couple of questions. Do you have anything?
And I just want to say thanks so much, Benjamin, for coming and sharing your story. So, anyway, it's an amazing story. You're an amazing guy, and I think you're an inspiration to all of us. We should all be signing up to join you on your next walk. Thank you so
If
much.
we get the number to the thousands, we can make change, but that requires everyone.
I was just wondering how your friends and family responded, like, to your walk. Like, how did you feel the reaction was to your walk and from your family and your friends? Do you feel it had an impact?
Yeah, at least I converted my mother, I think. She didn't know at all about this. I'm not from a political family, and I don't like to call myself political in any way either. I just care about human rights and just basic decency. So my mom really had a difficult time understanding what I was up to. And I tried to explain all of this, but it's kind of big concepts. And if it's the first time ever you hear about the people over there, sure, I've been mentioning it, but she didn't really know. So she was confused. She was like, what are you doing? Well, why are you walking? Take a flight, it's faster. Like, why? And lots of people have said, why don't you take a bike? It's faster, it's easier. But the entire point was that it's not easy. That's why people care. And my friends were like, aren't you gonna finish your education? I mean, it's cool and all, but and that was that. There wasn't a lot of reactions. I think my mom understood, and she came to Istanbul. And when I was in Istanbul, I was doing interviews almost every day, and I was meeting the activists there, and we were talking a lot. When she was there, she was like, wow, so this is your life now. Now I see why you left in the first place. After meeting everybody and such. But nobody got it, I feel. And it was just a leap of faith. I didn't know that this was gonna work. Activism is always like that. You never ever know if it's gonna work. It requires courage to invest all of your heart and your energy and your money into something that will not have immediate effects, not be tangible at first, but I think we need to. If we're not going to do it, then who are we waiting for?
Just wanted to ask you, how did you manage to take photographic, photographs of,
Photos of everything.
photographs you had of soldiers?
Yeah.
I mean, did you I'm just curious.
I want to be clear, I didn't take all of those photos. I took a few of those photos myself. Some of my friends took others, and some of are from journalists from the newspapers. So the pictures of the snipers on the border, on the fence, I wasn't there. I didn't take that picture. But people take pictures from there all the time. And I'm following quite a few groups with live updates, 24/7. The phone never stays silent, especially on Fridays. So you get just loads of information and pictures from the activists there on the ground all the time, and they're more than happy that we share them. So quite a few pictures are from the people there with their smartphones.
But what I was gonna say was, I think it's a really, really brave move. I remember, I think I've seen a clip on Al Jazeera a long, long time ago. There is these little Al Jazeera YouTube videos, and I think it was one about you. I don't know if I'm correct in saying this. It was one about you about somebody walking to Palestine from Europe. I don't know if you've seen this video. There's a glimpse.
Yeah, I did an Al Jazeera video. I saw it.
Was that you? Was it?
I don't know many people working from Europe to Palestine. There is a few. I'm not the only one, but
I think it might have been you actually. There is
might
a
have
picture
been.
of you on
Yeah.
YouTube. But anyway, I want to say it's just a really brave move for you to actually be crossing countries walking. I mean, I wouldn't go through Bulgaria forest and actually sleep in a tent. I'm just letting you know. No disrespect to Bulgaria, I'm not gonna lie. All the other countries.
that reminds me of a funny story I first heard someone say, and then I got the experience. We are very afraid, as human beings. We're very scared of our neighbors. And we never meet our neighbors. We're always scared of that imagination of the other. So I got warnings starting in Germany, saying all those countries are going through very bad. And when I'm in Croatia, they're like, are you going to Serbia next? And, they have a history with those two countries. There's don't trust those people. I'm sure they're nice and everything, but watch your back. And I come to Serbia, they're amazing people. And they say are you going to Bulgaria? You really need to watch your back. It's not safe. And I come there, and people are amazing. And they invite me to their homes, and they give me water and food on the way. And we're laughing, and I'm meeting many great people. But they are saying like, are you really going to Turkey next? That's dangerous. And I asked them like, have you ever been there? They're like, no, of course not. It's dangerous there. And I'm like, yeah, but how do you know? And I get to Turkey and they're the friendliest people I ever met. And I tell the Turkish people that I'm going to Palestine and to Jordan and to the Middle East, and they're like, are you serious? We can't go there. I mean, Turkey is safe, but don't go there. And I get there and it's just, everyone is scared of their neighbor. So one of the antidotes to racism, just grab a coffee with your neighbor and stop being afraid of them. Because everyone is talking about the same things anyway. The housing crisis, that's every country. The corrupt politicians, that's every country. Sexism and racism, that's every country. Like, we're all just facing the same shit. And having drinks and talking and laughing and complaining. So one of the lessons from the journey was that we're more similar, really, than we're different. Kill medics and journalists. You know, they have sniper rifles and they can aim. And they ask the commander, can I take the shot or not? And they get an approval and then they fire. I mean, it's such a bizarre situation that the biggest human rights organization in Israel, B'Tselem, made a campaign calling on the soldiers of Israel to disobey their orders because their orders are so blatantly illegal. They have orders to shoot, and that means kill unarmed demonstrators. It's illegal. We have an Israeli friend with us in the back, a very good friend.
I just wanted to let you know that there is a law in the Israeli army that if you are told to go against your moral judgment by law, you're obliged to follow your conscience. I know some people who have done that because I was a soldier in the Israeli army. But most people are too scared. It's very scary when you only have to look at Brexit here, how people are scared to say what they think about and nothing's going to happen. People are scared to be called out. And I'm not defending anything, but it goes back to what you're saying. The only way you conquer your fear is by doing. And I think that's the most powerful thing, and I want to thank you for that. But, you know, I think we heard a really important message. I'm an Israeli. We had dinner together. I said, I want you all to go and boycott my country before my country disappears. I've been calling for a boycott of Israel for the last 30 years because we can't take care of ourselves. We are out of control. And we're out of control because of fear. So what you're saying, enough when you know, now you have to do, you all have to do if you want to change the world. And I want to thank you for that call and being such a doer, Benjamin, because you really are an inspiration. Thank you.
Yeah, did some walking and now some talking, and then we'll do some walking again. Yeah, so the media didn't really, it was really different in different countries. Like Sweden, it was almost nothing, which I found frustrating. I called all of them, almost zero. And Germany, almost zero. Croatia, like a 20-minute piece on primetime TV, like that was surprising. Bulgaria also national TV, and Turkey quite a lot, like all their channels. And lots of international channels, I think. BBC Arabic and Al Jazeera were the biggest ones making videos. Social media videos with millions of views is probably the most efficient. There was a lot of media from different places. Furthest away was Taiwan and Bangladesh. I don't know how that happened, but there was someone calling, presenting themselves from Bangladesh. I saw the article in, I don't know the language, Bengali. I couldn't read it, but I was very happy to reach, people across the world. And that was me alone, getting millions of views on social media. Imagine us, thousands of Europeans and people of all faiths, all colors. We will have priests, imams, and rabbis walking. We'll have people from all across the world, indigenous people, British people, Swedish people. And please bring your flag. Bring the UK flag and the Palestinian flag in your other hand. And imagine if we have people from enough countries showing that there's a diverse and strong support. Because this action will be meaningless unless the numbers are big enough. We want a result this time, a tangible achievement. I did the walk once. I'm not about to do another awareness raising campaign, because we know already. Now we want the blockade lifted. Now we want the children to have water. That's the goal. And we'll get this victory, and we have to. If we don't, then what left is there for the people in Gaza? What are they to do after marching 1 year, dying? And if they get a medium-sized European movement to stand in support with them. Medium-sized, making some headlines, and then that's it. No, this time it's have to be huge so we get the result, and we can win. I have a friend in the US that knows Jimmy Carter. He said he will try his best to get him on board. Those are the people we're aiming for. Get Corbyn. If you know him, call him. These are the people we need. Big people. So I want to...
How about in Israel? Sorry, did you get the media there?
Yeah, the Jerusalem Post called me once, asking for an interview. I said, fine. And the interviewer said, like, our readers are a bit crazy, so you might do best to avoid the comment fields, comment sections when we post it on Facebook. I read through it was just like a call for my murder. But they did one interview once. Yeah, Israeli media. That was it. Jerusalem Post. So, let me thank you for coming out tonight. I'll hang around. I'm looking at the coffee over there. And feel free to stay, read the books, look at all the pictures on the wall, the text. And thank you to the museum for hosting this event. And I hope to see you the 15th of May. I'll put this up again. Just take a picture of my social media. If you're interested, go to humanityforpalestine.org and sign up. Send me a message so you don't forget. And thank you for coming.